Now I will call Dr. MP Singh. Basically, he has raised the flag and is carrying the flag for the last 4 or 5 years with the industry. Now he will tell how he will convince the panel industry to take the advantage and what are the problems in taking it and what is required. So he is the most experienced person who is interacting with the industry since long. Dr. MP Singh, please.
Yeah, very good morning to all the senior panelists. We really have a good policy, and at least there is some advancement in the policy. But as we have the experience that any policy in a country like India takes a longer time to get into action. Like we had the 1988 policy, and it took Godavardhan judgment to be there to get it implemented. That is how the industries were put out of the forest, and the sourcing of the raw material was now happening from the agroforestry. And this is, we can see that this is a new opportunity of getting back to the forest with a specific purpose of raw material augmentation. But as other panelists has raised the issue that there are implementation issues, there are issues of the biodiversity, there are issues of short rotation crop, long rotation crop, exotic species, indigenous species, and then the interest of the local community. So, and then more than that, there is apprehension among the farmers also. If the large forest area comes, then the price of the timber will also decrease in future. What they are getting, they will not get in future. So many implementation issues are there. However, we from the panel industry, we are trying the idea with how to go with this. Certainly, we will not go for the short rotation crops because that we are getting from the farmers in 4 years rotation or 5 year rotation. So we don't need to go to the government land. But for the long rotation crops, especially for the face veneer kind of species, we can think of collaborating with the government, and so that there is not much environmental issue there. And but we are still to find a state government who is willing to come forward to implement this policy of the government of India, because see all states and center, they are at a different frequency, and we had that experience with the last policy that conservation aspects were introduced in 88, but all the states were doing their harvesting and the production forestry in the usual pace till the Godavardhan judgment. So we think that if there are lots of consultation, especially from the central government, and then taking, because at present I've yet to find any state government in sync with the central government policy. So we are exploring which government comes first, which state government comes first. So we are approaching two, three state governments. So let us hope that we get some. But I don't see, means there can be one, two state from the south also. We are hopeful, in fact, especially with regard to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So it depends how the government views that thing. So this is at this stage only. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. We have a lot of hope.
Yeah,
All will depend on your advice.
sir.
So now I will invite Mahesh Sirur, who retired as PCC of Karnataka, how he feels, because Karnataka, the Karnataka is a very conservation oriented state, and now you are saying it is ruled by the opposition, so it is very difficult to implement, and they will implement in opposite directions. So let Mahesh tell us how much possibility he feels we will be able to implement this scheme in Karnataka. Mr. Mahesh Sirur, you are here in the panel, Mahesh ji. Mahesh ji नहीं है ना? I think Mahesh ji is not present in
हाँ,
present.
ज्वाइन तो किया था, अभी लगता नहीं है।
अब नहीं है. Just now I will call Dr. This year Sunil Pandey ji, who is the architect of this, who
ये
knows each and
ये
every move behind
एक
this change
एक
in
एक
policy.
पीसीसीएफ एफसी कौन है उनके नाम से?
वही तो है, महेश जी है.
तो वो है तो अभी
कहाँ है? नहीं, he is not
नहीं
responding.
नहीं
Mahesh ji is
लॉगिन
there in the panel. Is he present?
लॉगिन में है पीसीसीएफ एफसी।
हाँ, PCCFC लॉगिंग में है, बट इज नॉट रेस्पॉन्डिंग. चलो वो पांडे जी के बाद बोलेंगे. महेश जी नहीं है. तो नाउ मैं आई विल जस्ट रिक्वेस्ट.
तमिलनाडु से ही मिस्टर प्रतिभान सर भी हैं।
पार्थिवन सर पांडे जी के बाद बोलेंगे.
जी सर।
तो नाउ आई विल रिक्वेस्ट सुनील पांडे जी, हु आई थिंक ही नोज much more finer details what is the move behind this policy, how we will make it useful, and what questions has been raised by the previous panelists. Please try to cover those issues also. How to make it successful, because this success has come after 30 years, and now this is a opportunity to invite investment in the forestry sector, and let us try to, I think, make it successful like a national highway sector. I see like that. As the national highways progress, let our sector should also progress further. So, Dr. Sunil Pandey, please. And you have experience of forest department as well as industry both. You have worked for both of them. Please share your views.
Yeah, good morning, sir. And good morning to all of you. I hope I am audible. Yeah, so, sir, there was some shortcoming in the introduction, so I would like to just correct that. I'm also IFS officer of 90 batch, so that was not there. Plus, 5 years of my career in government, I ran National Bamboo Mission under Ministry of Science and Technology. So, a lot of experience came from there also working with the industry. And then I took pension in 2008. And after that, 5 years, I worked with the Sabah Forest Industries also uh, before coming to the ITC. So last 12 years, I am working with ITC. Now, there were some questions raised about Karnataka eucalyptus plantations. I think I would like to intimate that when Karnataka government issued an order in 2017, under which they almost banned the eucalyptus in farmers' field. And then the industry went to the High Court, and High Court stayed that order. And that order was stayed, and for that reason, the ITC is also promoting eucalyptus plantations in Karnataka. But we have requested the government that if government wants to appeal it to the Supreme Court, which they don't want to do, and Karnataka government formed one technical committee of about 4 members, and that technical committee gave the report to the forest department that eucalyptus, because all of us need to understand that we should not confuse clonal eucalyptus plantations with the seed-rooted eucalyptus plantation, which happened in Mysore, which happened in Ooty areas, because those were seed-rooted eucalyptus plantation, and it has a apical root system which goes up to about 8 meters, 10 meters. But now everywhere what eucalyptus is being promoted is the clonal eucalyptus plantations, in which we kill the apical root in the nursery itself through root trainers. And these eucalyptus clones, their root system does not go below 1.5 to 2 meters. And that is the reason why farmers came forward to raise these eucalyptus plantations, because it is easier for them to uproot because the root system does not go below. Also, there is a lot of confusion that it takes a lot of water and all that. we presented to the High Court, Karnataka High Court, that there is a study conducted that per kg of wood production, eucalyptus takes much lower water than what even the jamun, neem, and these species take. Certainly much lower than the rice and the agri crops, but it is, in fact, there are tree species which consume more water for producing 1 kg of wood than what eucalyptus does. So that was another argument presented to the Karnataka High Court. The third argument was that it is just a kind of a myth we are being told, because there was a study done in three districts of Andhra Pradesh where eucalyptus plantations, clonal eucalyptus plantations are being grown. And after 10 years, the groundwater study was done, and it was found that there is a no impact on the groundwater in those three districts when clonal eucalyptus plantations are grown. So on these three grounds, the Karnataka High Court state that government of Karnataka order, and after that the plantations have started. So it's a kind of a myth. Most of the forest officers also don't know about it, and they always feel that eucalyptus is something bad. Now I will come to the current order, which is the government of India is issued. See, all of us need to understand that this order has taken at least something like 18 years of my career itself. The first approach to the government of India was made by me itself in 2008, and there have been a multiple studies done, multiple presentations done to government of India. The first presentation was the lease model of degraded forest or the forest area to Mysore paper mill, which was done in 80s. And you won't believe, when we studied that model, what we found that Mysore paper mill, it was a government undertaking. Certainly, there is no lease has been done of the forest land to the private undertakings. It was done in Kerala to a government undertaking. It was done in Karnataka to the Mysore paper mill. And Mysore paper mill had to establish a parallel forestry organization to protect the land. Uh, just a minute. And which industries cannot do it, because those officers who were in that plantation department of Mysore paper mill, they were delegated the powers to do eviction of the encroachments, and that is how those lands can be protected. Now, if we give, that is the argument, and that is the study that went to government of India also, that if you give lease to the government, to the private industries, they are not capable of protecting that land. Plus, you cannot, they are not capable of building a forestry organization. So that was one logic, and that is the reason why the current order is not the lease order of the forest land. It is a kind of a collaborative working in which the land will remain with the forest department. And this was the product, or this was a kind of a conclusion drawn after the experience of the Mysore paper mill. The second study that was done, because I was working with the Sabah Forest Industries, and they had a lease. Sabah Forest Industries has a lease of about, in Malaysia, of about 3 lakh hectares, and it is being managed by the industry. How it was being managed is that a third party, though in fact Britishers were also in Malaysia before, I mean, they were in India, they were in Malaysia. If you see the working plan of Malaysia forest divisions, they were exactly the replica of the Indian forest working plans. They converted that the system to leasing the forest land to the industry for their industrial wood requirement. And they had a beautiful system that a third party like SGS, independent agency, was making the detailed project report. That is the reason why the DPR provision has come in this guideline. They were making detailed project report, which was acceptable to the forest department, which was acceptable to the industry. And then that agency was also monitoring the annual implementation of that DPR, and it was part of their working plan. So that is how this provision of DPR and the working plan incorporation has been brought into it. There is a heavy penalty on industry if they do not follow the annual management plan of that. So if certain areas they are asked to conserve that, so in that 3 lakh hectare, about 2 lakh hectare was the conservation forest, which the industry was conserving at its own resources. There was the riparian reserves, there were the community reserves, and about 1 lakh hectare was the area which was to be done the plantation. So it is also a myth that globally, whenever the forest land has been given to the industry, they have just raised plantation. No, they have raised plantation, and from that income, they have done the conservation of the riparian reserves, they have done conservation of the wildlife reserves. And in fact, the current model or the current guideline is also stipulating that it's not, I mean, it should not be understood that the land the industry will take and it will just do the plantation. There will be the areas which will be the gorges, there will be areas where the conservation will be needed, and that has to be incorporated in the DPR. That is the reason the provision of the DPR has been provided for into this. And this has to be the part of the management plan. So there should not be any doubt that the conservation will get affected or industry will just damage the forest land. So these were the two studies are the two learnings which were incorporated in this guideline. Now, what this guideline says, basically, see, there are a lot of also the observations which are coming that this is a new activity. No, this is not a new activity. We have given 1.2 million hectare of the forest land to forest development corporations. There are very excellent forest development corporations in Andhra and Telangana as well as Karnataka who have done and managed the eucalyptus plantations. So this order, or let's say raising eucalyptus plantation in forest, is not something which India is doing for the first time. It's only earlier it was done by the Forest Development Corporation. Now it is supposed to be done by the Forest Department in collaboration with the industry. I'm not saying that it will be only eucalyptus plantation. There will be the gurjan also. There will be multiple species, whichever species the industry wants. But here the crux of the issue is that the plantations has to be industry linked or end use linked. Lot of plantations have been done by the FDCs. In fact, there are the cashew plantations. There were the eucalyptus plantations. There was the bamboo plantations, which forest development corporations have raised. But only crux of the issue is that this has to be the industry linked plantation by the forest department, in which industry will be investing money, and then it will be sharing the produce or sharing the revenue. Lot of questions have also come that why there is a sudden interest of the industry in getting the land. First of it, the industry is not getting the land. It's not leased to the industry. But still, there are a lot of media reports we have seen that what is the interest of the industry? Let me explain this. When in ITC we started the agroforestry plantation, that was the mandate of National Forest Policy 1988. We developed productive clones, and you wouldn't believe hundreds of thousands of hectares of these pulpwood plantations were raised by ITC in the farmers' field. But after 2-3 rotations of these plantations, these lands are not degraded. There's a lot of humus had gone into the soil. There is a lot of the improvement has happened of the soil and the moisture of that particular area. And these lands are now capable of producing even the agri crops. Irrigation has expanded over a period of time. And these lands are capable of growing the cash crops. Now, what it means that when you are growing the industrial plantation or the pulp, or let's say the eucalyptus plantation, it has to match or it has to compete with any agri crops. What it has done that it has raised the table of the cost of wood, which is coming from the agroforestry. I'm not saying this is a bad phenomena, but gradually what is happening that our cost of wood has been raised. So let us say today the industry is consuming, including the plywood industry, we are consuming of the wood of US dollar 200 per BDMT. BDMT is basically the bone dry metric ton. If you just take out the moisture, you will be getting USD 200 per BDMT. Our competitors in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Brazil, because they have the land which is not competing with any agriculture crops. Indonesia has the lease land, lease forest land. Brazil has the companies are owning it. Now you won't believe their cost of wood today is US dollar 100 per BDMT. The Indian industry is operating today. In fact, the peeling industry, it is paying about 15,000 rupees per metric ton for the peeling logs. Last year itself, there is about 80% increase in the imports of the plywood, veneer, and the peeling logs. Because the industry, when you are having a free trade agreement with ASEAN countries, with different countries, industry cannot survive with this cost of the wood. So the objective is that let us have part of it. So one is the agroforestry plantations areas are reducing in a sense. These are competing with other agri crops. The second one is that we don't want to disregard the farmers. What we want that maybe 15-20% of the wood comes from an area where the cost of wood is basis cost of plantation. So why Indonesia is getting a benefit? Because their cost of wood is the cost of plantation. In India, when you are taking it from the market, your cost of wood is double the cost of the plantation. So the industry is interested in that even if our 10-15%, see, it will not happen more than 10% because even if you see this wood crisis cycle, which is going on from 2023 to 26, the demand supply gap is not more than 10 to 15%. But that demand supply gap has increased the wood price by about 100%. So we want to avoid a situation like this, and we want that at least 10-15% of the industrial wood comes from the forest, and that is the interest of the industry. Now coming to also there has been, so once we explain the interest of the industry, why we are doing it, then the question comes that what about the environment? What about the biodiversity? See, frankly speaking, the areas which were allotted to forest development corporations for eucalyptus plantation in 1980, 1990, those areas, if you see, the forest cover is 90%. So it is a myth that if the plantations are raised in the forest areas, the areas will get degraded. That is not going to happen. The second myth is that the areas are being leased to the industry, which is not a fact. The third one is that biodiversity will get affected. No, that is not the case. If there are certain areas which needs to be conserved, it has to be incorporated in the DPR, and state governments need to be explained that it will be the area specific treatment which will be done, and that is not the case. The fourth thing is that we have the example that in Andhra Pradesh itself, about 40,000 hectares of the forest land, the plantations were raised by VSS communities. These are the JFM equivalent communities. Are those areas degraded? No, these areas are not degraded. So just presuming that if a monoculture plantation or eucalyptus plant, first of all, it will not be a monoculture plantation. If it is done, the area will get degraded. No, that is not the case. We have a case of 1.2 million hectares of the FDC plantations in last 20, 25, 30 years. So that is not the case. Then comes the local communities. See, plantation is one of the highest employment generating activities. In 1 hectare of plantation, we have calculated from nursery to harvesting, about 450 man days per hectare are getting generated, which is not getting generated in any of the forestry activity which is happening in those areas. And it will generate local employment. You can keep a area specified for the fuel wood fodder. That is not an issue. You can put it in the DPR. You can put it in the working plan for the local communities. Industries will come in those areas because industrial wood availability will improve. The foreign exchange reserves will get conserved because you don't have to import long rotation tree species or even the tree species where there is a gap, demand supply gap is there with the agroforestry. So I think we have to certainly go with the pilot model. We have to convince the state governments, and we have to basically be very clear in our mind that we are not here to damage the forest. We are here to create employment, improve the forest cover of those areas, improve the wood availability so that it's a win-win situation for the local communities, for the forest, as well as for the industry. So I will stop here. I know there will be a lot of questions because the kind of background I have given. I'm very happy to explain that, but I think it's a long journey. It's a tedious journey. It has been a long journey. Already like 18 years of my career, I have been pursuing it. So, but I think let us not get afraid with that. I will stop here, and I'm ready to take up any question in this. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Sunil Pandey ji. You have told in very detail how the things have progressed with the passage of time.